My name is Avery Parker. I was born and raised in a quiet suburb in Washington. From the outside, my family looked like the picture of upper-middle-class American life, a house with manicured gardens, an elegant stone pathway, and perfectly choreographed family dinners under crystal lighting. But inside, things were far from as pleasant as they appeared. I was the firstborn of my parents, Douglas and Vanessa Parker, both obsessed with progressive child development. My father, a successful corporate executive with a passion for status, always dreamed of having a brilliant, exceptional child. My mother, a former elementary school teacher turned PTA president, once boasted to her social circle that she had studied over 50 child development theories before I was born. "Douglas, I don't think she has the spatial reasoning abilities we expected," she said one day, her voice sharp with disappointment as I built a small house out of blocks nearby at 3 years old. "We need to intervene now before her development window closes completely." My dad just nodded, but I remember how he looked at me that day, like I was a failed investment, a project not worth additional resources. The cold calculation in his eyes made my small fingers tremble as I continued stacking my blocks higher. When I was 4, my younger sister Olivia was born, and from that moment on, everything at home transformed. Mom became an entirely different person. Every space in our house overflowed with cognitive development games, architectural modeling kits, and advanced learning systems typically found only in prestigious private academies. I vividly recall that afternoon I was quietly sketching a dream house in my notebook when Mom walked by, glanced dismissively at my drawing, and announced, "Olivia is barely 7 months old and already recognizing complex patterns. Well, just keep doodling if that makes you happy." The sting of her words felt like ice against my skin. Olivia had a custom-designed learning center, imported educational materials from Denmark, and a private developmental specialist before she turned 2. And me. I had discount coloring books, broken crayons, and constant reminders that my little hobby would never amount to anything meaningful. When I was 8, I won first place in the school architecture competition with my model city design. I brought my blue ribbon home, heart pounding with excitement. Mom barely looked up from helping Olivia and said, "That's nice, but Olivia just completed a logic sequence meant for 5th graders." Dad didn't even acknowledge me. He was busy installing an advanced mathematics system in Olivia's playroom. I learned to expect nothing, no encouragement, no celebration, no moment of pride. I gradually faded into the background of my own family, physically present but emotionally invisible. The breaking point came in the fall when I turned 12. I had always had my own room, the upstairs one with the bay window that overlooked the maple trees behind our house, where golden light danced across my drawings each morning. I loved that room. It was the only place where my imagination could truly flourish. One evening, just after I finished sketching a new house design and was pinning it to my inspiration board, Olivia marched in without knocking. "Mom says I'm taking this room now. It has better lighting, and I need the extra space for my new accelerated learning station." I stared at her, thinking it must be some cruel joke. "No," I said firmly, my voice surprisingly steady. "This is my room. My designs need this light." Olivia rolled her eyes and walked out. Less than 24 hours later, when I returned from school, my entire world had been dismantled. My things had been crammed into the tiny room next to the utility area. My former sanctuary now displayed Olivia's name in expensive gold lettering, filled with high-end educational equipment and a custom-designed ergonomic desk. I stepped into my new room, cold, cramped, and devoid of natural light. The bed pressed against one wall, the desk barely fit my sketchbook. I stood there, hands trembling, swallowing the burning lump in my throat. "Mom," I called out, my voice breaking. "How could you do this? That was my room. I've created designs there since I was little." She didn't even turn to face me. "You're older now, Avery. Learn to sacrifice. Olivia needs proper space for her development. Don't be selfish." I didn't respond. I retreated into the tiny space, closed the door, and sank onto the edge of the bed. A thin strip of artificial light seeped under the door, cold and unfamiliar. For the first time, I fully understood my place in that house. I was merely an afterthought, a footnote in the story of Olivia's greatness. Despite being the firstborn, by my senior year of high school, life in the Parker household still orbited exclusively around Olivia. She attended an elite private academy, driven there in a luxury SUV, with multiple specialized tutors visiting thrice weekly. Meanwhile, I remained at public school, walking the mile-long route each morning, managing everything independently from coursework to architectural club. I never voiced complaints. The background had become my natural habitat, a place where expectations couldn't hurt me. But I wasn't prepared for when the last facade of parental fairness shattered completely during dinner. That evening, my grandparents Walter and Eleanor were visiting, the only people who ever truly saw me. We sat around Mom's perfectly staged dinner, while Olivia dominated the conversation about her upcoming summer architecture program at Princeton. "How exciting," Grandma Eleanor smiled warmly, then turned to me. "And what about you, Avery? Have you decided on college?" I looked up, my heart racing with rare hope that I might share my achievements. I got accepted to Washington University's urban planning program. Partial scholarship. If I can secure additional financial aid. The harsh clatter of Mom's silverware against fine china cut me off mid-sentence. "Avery," she announced, her voice brittle as thin ice. "Your father and I have made a decision. We won't be contributing to your tuition this year." I froze. "Excuse me?" Dad jumped in with practiced precision. "We need to focus resources on Olivia. She's been selected for a specialized pre-architecture program at an Ivy League. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." My stomach twisted painfully. "So the college fund you promised was for both of us is going entirely to Olivia?" Mom exhaled dramatically, as if explaining basic arithmetic to a child. "Olivia has extraordinary potential. You might consider community college, Avery. Or perhaps working for a while isn't such a terrible option." The crushing realization that they were completely abandoning my education struck me like physical pain. Deafening silence filled the room, broken only by Grandma Eleanor's deliberate tap of her spoon against her water glass. "Vanessa," she said, her soft voice carrying unmistakable steel. "Both these girls are equally our granddaughters. I won't witness one being deliberately discarded." Mom's lips tightened. "Mother, this isn't." "Yes, it absolutely is," Grandpa Walter cut in, his weathered hand forming a fist on the table. "This is precisely our concern." Later, as I quietly cleared dishes, Grandma Eleanor approached, placing her warm hand firmly on my shoulder. "This burden isn't yours to carry anymore," she whispered. "We're paying your entire university tuition. No discussions needed." I turned, eyes burning with unshed tears. "That's too much to ask." "It's never too much to invest in someone who creates her own path," she smiled, her eyes reflecting genuine pride. "You don't need favoritism to build something beautiful, Avery. Your designs already prove that." That fall, I moved into the residence halls at Washington University. On departure day, Mom offered a mechanical hug at the doorway and murmured, "Be economical with money and don't come asking for handouts." Olivia never even glanced up from her social media feed. I stepped away from that house, pulling my weathered suitcase across the cobblestone path, my chest expanding with each step, as if escaping the gravitational pull of constant comparison and dismissal. The weight lifting from my shoulders felt almost physical. University life unfolded like discovering color after years of grayscale existence. There, I wasn't the disappointing firstborn. No longer the shadow trailing behind a manufactured prodigy. I was Avery Parker, urban planning student with visionary ideas and uncompromising determination. Professors highlighted my innovative approaches to sustainable design. Classmates sought my perspective on revitalization projects. Every Sunday evening, I called my grandparents to share each small victory and design concept taking shape. My parents never called. They never checked on my progress. And surprisingly, their silence didn't wound me anymore. I'd stopped hunting for approval from people who'd decided my worth before seeing what I could create. What flourished now was authentic value, one built from within rather than bestowed from above. I entered senior year with a confidence previously unimaginable. Through late-night design sessions in the architecture studio, part-time work at a downtown urban planning office where I learned how communities truly function, and countless hours studying revolutionary development models, I began attracting professional attention. My urban renewal professor, Dr. Morgan, recommended me for a competitive summer internship at the prestigious development innovation firm in Seattle. I still recall my first interview vividly: sleek conference room, polished marble table, 3 executives examining my portfolio with surprisingly intense interest. "What do you believe is the most critical element in successful urban redevelopment?" one asked, watching me carefully. "Understanding not just the infrastructure needs, but how people emotionally connect with spaces," I answered confidently. They exchanged meaningful glances. I received the offer that afternoon, and from that summer forward, everything in my life transformed completely. After graduating with honors and having my sustainable community model featured in an urban planning journal, I accepted a full-time position at Development Innovation as a junior project analyst. I worked relentlessly, absorbing everything from environmental impact studies and community engagement strategies to deciphering the hidden potential in struggling neighborhoods. 3 years later, during a routine evaluation of a major redevelopment project, I discovered something alarming. A cluster of properties our firm had heavily invested in showed signs of fundamental structural issues not disclosed in the original assessments. The inspection reports looked suspiciously positive compared to similar buildings in the area. Most analysts dismissed my concerns, seeing only the profit margins. I spent 2 sleepless nights examining every blueprint, cross-referencing soil reports, and finally uncovered the truth. The development site sat on unstable ground with serious contamination issues deliberately concealed in doctored environmental studies. If we proceeded, we'd risk not only $40 million in investor funds but potentially endanger future residents. I couldn't remain silent. That Monday morning, I walked into the executive conference room with a comprehensive analysis and alternative development plan. No one interrupted. When I finished, the development director stared in disbelief before turning to the CEO and stating, "She just saved countless lives and our reputation." Within a week, the entire project was restructured following my proposal. 6 months later, not only had we avoided a catastrophic failure, but the revised plan delivered a 13.5% higher return through its innovative community-centered approach. I was promoted to lead development strategist. But I didn't stop there. I began dedicating my evenings to creating an urban revitalization algorithm integrating factors like community engagement patterns, environmental impact, economic accessibility, and long-term sustainability. It quantified what the industry always labeled intangible. I named it Sunrise. Initially, Sunrise was my personal project, but after it accurately predicted successful outcomes in 3 struggling neighborhood transformations, exceeding projections by 30%, executive leadership took serious interest. Within a year, the system became the cornerstone of the company's development strategy, helping development innovation surpass major competitors in sustainable urban renewal. I vividly remember being summoned to the executive suite. The CEO, Michael Bryant, smiled warmly as the room settled. "Avery," he announced, "we're establishing a new position, Chief Development Officer, and no one is better qualified than you." I felt my throat tighten. Just 4 years earlier, my parents suggested I work retail while figuring things out. This wasn't merely a title. It represented everything I'd overcome, from being the invisible daughter in my own family to leading strategy in a multi-million-dollar firm's boardroom. That evening, I didn't celebrate lavishly. Instead, I drove to my grandparents' welcoming brick house filled with genuine warmth. Grandma Eleanor was arranging flowers, and Grandpa Walter was brewing coffee. I placed the appointment letter before them. Their eyes met in a knowing smile. "Little Avery," Grandpa said softly, "now building the future." I looked between them, the first people who believed my designs held value even when imperfect. For the first time, external validation felt secondary. I had already proven my worth to myself, through quiet determination, passionate vision, and unwavering persistence. After accepting the Chief Development Officer position at Development Innovation, I wanted to commemorate this achievement, not extravagantly, but with an intimate gathering for those who'd supported me, my grandparents, select friends, and a few respected colleagues. But more importantly, I wanted to share something deeply personal, the first home I'd designed and built myself, representing everything I'd overcome. When I mentioned my housewarming plans to my mother, she immediately volunteered, "Let us host it for you. We'll make it special at your new place. The perfect family reunion." I hesitated, feeling a familiar knot of doubt, but she pressed on, "Just send money for catering and decor. I'll manage everything else beautifully." Despite my misgivings, I wondered if this might bridge our fractured relationship. I transferred $2,000 to her account, hoping for reconciliation. A week later, arriving at my newly constructed home, a contemporary design with sustainable features I'd dreamed of since childhood, I was blindsided by what awaited me. The house had been transformed beyond recognition, crystal chandeliers hanging where my carefully selected fixtures should be, elaborate floral arrangements obscuring my architectural details, and tables arranged for a formal event rather than the warm gathering I'd planned. My grandparents stood near the kitchen, looking uncomfortable among unfamiliar faces. Olivia descended my custom-designed staircase wearing an extravagant blue gown, accompanied by a man in an expensive suit I'd never met. As I raised my glass to welcome everyone to my new home, my mother abruptly stood, her smile dazzling but cold. "Beloved family and friends," she announced triumphantly, "we've gathered not just to see this lovely house, but to celebrate something extraordinary. Olivia and her boyfriend Jason are engaged." Applause erupted while I stood paralyzed with disbelief. I turned toward my mother, but her gaze swept past me as if I were merely another attendee at a celebration in my own home, a home I'd designed and paid for. I moved forward, but my mother intercepted me, whispering with chilling finality, "Avery, this house is perfect for a young couple starting out. Olivia has always wanted something custom designed. You should sign it over to them as an engagement gift." My breath caught painfully in my chest. Not only had they hijacked my celebration, but now they wanted my home, the physical manifestation of my dreams and hard work. The whispered demand ignited something within me. I straightened my shoulders and returned to the center of the room, raising my glass with steady determination. "May I have everyone's attention for a moment?" My voice carried clearly. All eyes turned toward me. Olivia froze mid-conversation. My mother's smile tightened. "I welcome you all to this celebration today," I began with quiet intensity, which was originally planned to mark my appointment as Chief Development Officer at Development Innovation. This house represents the culmination of my design philosophy, the very vision my family once dismissed as worthless doodling. I paused, feeling the weight of truth. I designed every inch of this home myself. I paid for this gathering. And at no point was I informed it would become an engagement announcement. Shocked murmurs filled the room. My grandparents exchanged knowing glances. "I don't begrudge Olivia's engagement," I continued evenly. "What I cannot accept is my mother suggesting I should give this house, my design, my investment, my home, to Olivia as a gift, continuing the pattern of my existence being erased for her benefit." Jason turned to Olivia, professional architectural assessment evident in his expression. "You told me this was a family property. I had no idea this was your sister's custom-designed home." Olivia's perfect composure cracked. "Jason, I was going to explain later. That your family expected your sister to hand over a property she designed herself?" His voice carried unmistakable disapproval. "I come from a development family. I know what goes into creating something like this." He set down his glass and walked toward the door. Olivia hurried after him unsuccessfully. Suffocating silence descended. My father rose, face contorted with rage. "You've always been selfish, Avery. This house would be perfect for—" "No," I cut him off firmly. "This house is mine. The achievement is mine, and clearly, this family dynamic remains unchanged." I turned to my grandparents. They stood proudly. Grandma Eleanor's eyes glistened with tears of understanding, and Grandpa Walter took my hand supportively as I moved toward them. I don't need validation from people who see me as nothing but resources to redistribute. With that, I walked them toward the door, not leaving myself, but escorting the toxicity out of my home. This time, I wasn't the one departing in defeat. I was reclaiming my space, my dignity, and my right to recognition. Jason departed without another word, leaving Olivia frozen in disbelief on my custom-designed entryway. She chased him to the driveway, but his luxury SUV pulled away before she could reach him. The headlights vanished down the winding road, plunging the gathering into uncomfortable silence where celebratory chatter had moments before filled my carefully designed acoustic space. Olivia stormed back inside, her manufactured tears instantly replaced with raw fury. "You've always been consumed with jealousy. You can't bear to see me happy, so you deliberately destroy everything good in my life." I stood motionless, saying nothing. For the first time, her accusations didn't penetrate my defenses. I felt only exhaustion, tired of the same predictable script she'd perfected since childhood. "Olivia," Grandma Eleanor intervened, her voice gentle but carrying undeniable authority. "You orchestrated this deception. Don't transfer the aftermath to your sister's shoulders." My mother advanced, her socialite composure cracking under humiliation and rage. "Avery, how dare you embarrass Olivia in front of everyone? This house would be perfect for a newly engaged couple." "I didn't manufacture anything," I replied with quiet certainty. "I simply spoke truth that's been suppressed far too long." My father seized my mother's arm, restraining her physical advance while his voice cut like Arctic wind. "If you refuse to give this house to your sister," he threatened, "consider yourself permanently severed from this family. No support, no contact, no inheritance. You'll be erased from our existence." Before I could respond, Grandpa Walter, who had observed the scene with calculated patience, stepped forward deliberately. His authoritative presence commanded attention as his voice resonated through my vaulted ceiling. "Douglas, if you're contemplating disowning Avery, perhaps we should clarify certain financial realities." Grandma Eleanor moved beside him in perfect solidarity. My mother's expression shifted, instinctively detecting the power dynamics changing. We finalized legal adjustments to our estate 3 months ago, she announced with poised confidence. Our entire holdings, the family properties, investment portfolios, business interests, everything transfers exclusively to Avery. My mother's shock manifested as a strangled sound. What? We've witnessed enough, Grandpa Walter stated decisively. Sufficient evidence to distinguish between earned success and parasitic entitlement. Olivia is my daughter. My mother practically shrieked. Why would you choose her? Because Avery alone exemplified genuine integrity, Grandma Eleanor replied, her composed voice carrying resolute conviction. She never demanded resources, never manipulated situations, never trampled others' achievements. We refused to perpetuate patterns of favoritism and manipulation. Olivia's carefully constructed facade disintegrated completely. She fled upstairs, her blue gown trailing behind her like watercolor stains across my meticulously designed staircase. My mother remained paralyzed in the center of my great room, her lips quivering uncontrollably. My father turned away, defeated. I clutched my house keys, gazing at my grandparents with overwhelming gratitude. I never sought this. The inheritance isn't necessary. We understand completely, Grandpa Walter smiled warmly. Which precisely confirms you're the only one deserving of it. I surveyed the space around me, no longer a battleground but a testament to truth finally exposed. Gradually, relatives began departing, avoiding eye contact as though awakening from collective delusion. Nobody attempted to stop me as I escorted my grandparents toward the door. I remained on my front porch, breathing in the spring evening air carrying the scent of the native plants I'd carefully selected for my landscaping. The door closed behind the last departing guests. This wasn't an exclusion, it was me reclaiming my rightful space. Later that evening, sitting with my grandparents on my own terrace, Grandma Eleanor gently covered my hand with hers. You no longer need to justify your existence or prove your worth, she said softly. Now you simply get to create and thrive. I met her gaze, my vision blurring slightly. I had never experienced such profound liberation, not from financial security, not from professional recognition, but from finally choosing self-respect over the endless pursuit of approval from people determined never to give it. 3 years have passed since that night, the night I reclaimed my home and my dignity, carrying away truth, pain, and a resilience I never knew existed within me. I never looked back, and surprisingly, never needed to. During these years, I devoted myself completely to development innovation. Every dawn breaking over cityscapes, every midnight hour in our downtown headquarters, there I was, refining the sunrise algorithm, analyzing community feedback patterns, and guiding my team through transformational urban projects that once seemed impossible. When Michael Bryant announced his retirement as CEO, no one expected him to select me as successor. But to me, it wasn't surprising fortune. It was the culmination of every sacrifice, every sleepless night plotting sustainability metrics, every courageous decision I'd made against conventional wisdom. On the day I officially became CEO of Development Innovation, I was 32 years old, the youngest female CEO in the company's 65-year history. The announcement ceremony filled our main atrium with press photographers and industry leaders from across the country. I stood at the podium not seeking validation, but representing everyone who builds success from scratch rather than inheritance. After my speech, I stepped away from the crowd and called my grandparents. We did it, I whispered, my voice catching with emotion. Grandpa Walter chuckled warmly, and Grandma Eleanor spoke words forever etched in my heart. You've always been exceptional, Avery, from the very beginning. Meanwhile, 30 miles away in my hometown, little had changed. Olivia was now 28, without her engagement ring or steady employment. After Jason walked away that night, her life unraveled through predictable patterns. She abandoned an influencer course complaining it was too demanding. Attempted social media careers but quit because followers don't appreciate authentic content. Eventually, she moved back with our parents, occupying the same bedroom she once appropriated from me. I haven't exchanged words with my parents since that revealing night. Occasionally my grandparents mention they inquire about me through mutual connections, but I've released any emotional investment in their approval. I've discovered that some relationships aren't worth preserving, particularly those built on calculated favoritism and manipulation. Every Sunday evening, I host my grandparents at my home. We enjoy dinner in the garden pavilion I designed specifically for them, reviewing childhood sketches I'd preserved despite constant dismissal. Grandma Eleanor recounts stories from my early years, and Grandpa Walter pretends forgetfulness, creating opportunities for me to elaborate on every cherished detail. Once I asked if they ever second-guessed their decision about the inheritance. We didn't allocate it based on financial value, Grandma explains softly. We entrusted it to someone who truly understands the value of authenticity, someone who chose integrity over approval, patient silence when strategic, and brave voice when necessary. I smiled, recognizing that their greatest gift wasn't material wealth, but unwavering belief. One spring afternoon, exiting our offices after presenting new sustainable housing initiatives, I noticed someone waiting in the reception area. Looking closer, I realized it was Olivia. She appeared thinner, her expression uncertain, though still maintaining her carefully curated image, designer attire and immaculate appearance. "I'm not here seeking reconciliation," Olivia stated immediately, defensively. I need to understand how you've achieved all this without connections or advantages." I regarded her without anger or condescension. "Because I started with nothing, Olivia. That emptiness taught me to build foundations from within myself. It's something you've never experienced." Olivia held my gaze momentarily. Without further words, she turned and departed. I can't predict her capacity for growth, but I know with absolute certainty I'll never revert to being the sister who constantly conceded, perpetually accommodated, and habitually silenced herself to maintain artificial harmony. I returned to my executive suite where my team awaited to launch our most ambitious community redevelopment project yet. In that moment, profound clarity washed over me. Regardless where one begins, as long as you remain true to your vision and values, the destination justifies every challenging step. My journey transcends overcoming familial favoritism. It illustrates the transformative power of perseverance and self-worth. Once dismissed and marginalized even during my own celebration, I chose elevation through authenticity rather than resentment. Today, I no longer chase validation from those who systematically denied my potential, because I found community among those who genuinely value my vision. More significantly, I've discovered the unshakable foundation of believing in myself. What's your perspective on Avery's choices? Were her boundaries too firm, or precisely what she deserved after years of systematic erasure?